Before we start today's episode, let me tell you about my latest adventure. Introducing Lux Coffee Co., a specialty-grade coffee company inspired by creativity and creatives. The debut range is sourced from some of the best farms in Brazil, Peru, Colombia, and Africa, offering beautiful flavors and notes. Our single origins and house blends are roasted every Monday for next day shipping. Visit luxcoffee.co.uk and use code PODCAST for 15% off your first order. And yes, there's exceptional merch too. Lux Coffee Co. is where art meets exceptional coffee.
And that was the best decision that I've given, actually. And I gave enough time to Nike also, saying that I'm planning to leave, but I don't want to leave. And because I want a better role, I want a bigger role, I want a bigger jacket. And then they were not able to provide that jacket within that time frame. And then I said, that's okay, no bad feelings. I still love the brand, I still love the team, but I'm leaving. So that was the decision.
Welcome to Mindful Creative Podcast, a show about understanding how to deal with the highs and lows of creative lives. My name is Radim Malinic, and creativity changed my life, but it also nearly killed me. In this season, inspired by my book of the same title, I am talking to some of the most celebrated figures in the creative industry. In our candid conversations, my guests share their experiences and how they overcame their challenges and struggles, how they learned to grow as creatives. A creative career in the 21st century can be overwhelming. I wanted to capture these honest and transparent conversations that might help you find that guiding light in your career. Thank you for joining me on this episode and taking the first or next step towards regaining control of your creative life. You ready? My guest today is a consultant CMO and a brand strategist living and working in New York City. She helps brands strengthen their identity and helps them scale and grow. During her career, she's been on both sides of product development and marketing at Nike before striking on her own to build her independent consultancy boutique agency. She also hosts the Marketing Meeting podcast, exploring emerging marketing trends. In our conversation, we discuss her courage to leave corporate life and her philosophies on time, discipline and soul searching. It's my pleasure to introduce Itir Eraslan. Itir, it's so nice to have you on the show today. For those who might not know, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm the founder of a boutique based in New York City, although I don't like to call it agency too much, but I'm focused on strategy building and brand identity and marketing management, especially for the brands that are at the critical growth phase.
I want to know how now you find yourself in New York City. So you've got your own studio or your agency. And I want to know what's your background? How did you get into this? How does one get into the world of marketing?
I didn't get into the world of marketing till I was 30, around 30s. I'm actually an engineer and I'm a textile engineer. And I started working at Nike as a product manager. So I was doing all the things a product manager does, which is like taking the innovation, sourcing it out to the factories around Europe, and developing the product with the designers and the fabric teams, pricing them out and till shipping it to the stores. So that's where I started. But after a few years of doing that, I recognized that I wanted to be closer to the customer. And with that, I approached the sales office at Nike. I was in Turkey back then. And I told them that I want to be a part of the sales organization because I want to be closer to the customer. The reason that I wanted to be closer to the customer is that I do a lot of sports. And I feel that if I'll be close to the customer, which is the athlete, in Nike say every person is an athlete, that I would be able to bring more value for. And it also sounded quite fun at that time, but there was no I didn't have any intention to be a marketer, or I didn't have any intention to be a salesperson or whatever. I just wanted to be closer to the customer, just to have more fun, because I'm also a customer of Nike. That's where I started working in the retail team, because there was an opening at the retail team and there was one person who was interested to have me on board. And I did merchandising, visual merchandising even, and store planning. And then I moved to retail expansion, which involves like a new store analysis, finding the new stores, finding the new partners. And from there, which involves a lot of strategic thinking. And from there, at one point, I found myself in the marketing team. I started working with a very nice person, Massimo Gimco. He is my first boss at Nike, who helped me get into marketing. So since then, I'm doing marketing. And about 7 years ago, at my 20th year at Nike, I decided that I want to leave for some specific reasons. And then 7 years ago, I founded my own company. And since then, I'm working for myself.
Excellent. There's so much to unpick. How does one get into product? Was you say textile engineering?
It was so popular at that time. I knew that I wanted to be an engineer because I was not really good at social studies, geography, history. I didn't like any of those. That's why I picked engineering, because I like math, science, and so on. And then when I think about engineering, there were a few popular things. One of them was textile engineering at that time in Turkey, because I was based in Turkey. There's too much textile production. Or I want to be an industrial engineer. I had two options and I won textile engineering, and I'm really happy that I did.
It's brought you to where you are today, and I think it's a fascinating story. So was your sort of choice of university degree, because did you do that as a degree?
Yes.
So was your choice of university degree based on pragmatic reasons, or was it based on curiosity? How did you base it?
I think at that age, you are not really sure what to do, but I find it nice for a few reasons. Like, there was no rational reason behind it. For example, Gap used to have their own offices in Istanbul, in Turkey. And the building that they had their own offices was a very nice building in the heart of Istanbul. It was very modern, and I loved Gap as a brand. And I thought that if I get graduated from university from textile engineering, I would be working in Gap as a textile person. And some other reasons just like that. And there is no rationale behind. It's just like trying to fit into an identity at that age. But I knew myself. I was not a really A-grade student working too much and so on. I was working and I was like a middle level student. But the reason that I was not like the top of this class is because that maybe, I don't know, I didn't have a significant IQ or whatever, but I was also doing lots of sports. I was at the volleyball team, I was at the dancing team and so on. Because of all these personal interactions and social interactions and cultural things, I couldn't study too much and I was like normal student. But the thing is that about me at that time, and which still keeps on going, is not that I pick textile or I'm a marketer now or whatever. If I'm given a task, I really get motivated and finish the task with whatever I can do. I put myself into it. I really take it seriously. That's why probably I love sport.
So with your time as a product manager, did you get involved in the manufacturing and design and those parts?
Very much involved. I was even doing, because the factories that we were producing, there were some compliance checkpoints, and every product manager has to know how to check a factory compliance issues. So whenever I do a factory visit, I was also checking if there's like a underage worker or those type of things. So I was really heavily involved in production. Like I even remember checking the color cards based on the fabrics that came from development and deciding if it's off color or on color or so on. It's just like a very hands-on textile thing. But I want to add something there, because when I was around 20s, when I picked textile engineering and I wanted to work in Gap one day at this beautiful building in Istanbul, which is not beautiful at all now. And also the brand is not that inspirational. But I was not like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do this and then later on decide what I'm going to. I was not in that mood. I was very determined about my choices. I was like, I'm going to be a textile engineer. And once I'm a textile engineer, I was just like, I'm going to work at Gap or something similar to Gap. So it was like I was really determined about my decision. That's why nowadays, for example, I'm really determined about my path, founding an agency, growing an agency in New York. But I know that in 2 years' time, this path might shift to something else. And then I know that I'll be determined to that path again. So this is something that I would like to say, because if you take it less seriously, if you say that, oh, I'm going to decide in 2 years, 3 years, I don't know what I'm doing right now, then it means that you are not paying enough attention to the path that you are taking. I think that's also something that I'm also saying to my nieces, saying to someone, if someone asks my opinion, I'm just like, okay, your choices might change, but just make sure that the path that you take it seriously.
We'll be back after a quick break.
If you're enjoying this podcast and would like more support and information on your creative journey, you can pick up one of my books to help you do just that. My titles cover branding, graphic design, illustration, all the way to career business advice with ideas how to navigate the highs and lows of the creative process. You can pick up signed paperbacks at no extra cost from my store at novemberuniverse.co.uk, and we are shipping worldwide. Use code PODCAST for extra 10% off your order, and you can find the links in the show notes. Any day should be a new book day. So you're now the person who's asking the question, who do you want to be? How seriously are you taking it? So this is you going back and repeating the cycle. It's interesting. So yeah, if you're not paying focus, if you're not paying attention, then you're off the path. I think that's interesting because it makes sense. It truly makes sense. You mentioned you wanted to go from being product manager, be closer to the customer, the athlete, because it's more fun. How did the word fun appear? Because sometimes customers or athletes or people might be the opposite of fun. So what was the drive? What was the connection there?
I'm trying to think about the rationale behind it, why I was thinking that it's fun. But at that time, the sales teams were going to all these sales meetings and they were sharing a lot of pictures and nice videos, like recaps, because that's what marketing is, right? Like motivational speeches, conferences. And it looked like they were having fun. That's the first reason. Because within an organization, I'm the one who is going to the factory and then, doing security checks, checking the fabrics, the apparel, and eating the factory food. Whereas I was seeing my friends at the sales office, they were like in Marbella in Spain, enjoying sun and then watching an inspirational athlete talking on the stage. So that's one of the reasons that I thought that sales and marketing are having fun. But the other thing is that I always had fun when I was doing or watching sports. So I thought that if I be closer to the customer, then I should really feel in flow rather than being on the production side of the business.
I always think that maybe I form my question from a negative perspective, thinking, are you really sure about the word fun? Because what you just described, it was so aspirational, thinking, yes, of course. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, because you were driving with your eyes open. You're like, this is what I want to do. Because again, your path that you talk about is what you've learned through sometimes not as fun work. Were the factories in China, or was it in Turkey, or?
In Turkey, in Europe, in Israel, in many parts of Europe, and especially I was responsible for the production in Israel. They were producing more high-tech products and shipping to US. I was traveling a lot, yeah.
So we're traveling a lot, obviously, like you were picking up the knowledge of like how the product is made, what can be of color, because I think when you graduate on that level of, okay, I'm going to go into sales or I'm going into marketing, baseline, how the product is made, things about the product that sometimes people who have far too much fun and listening to beautiful keynote speeches be like, yeah, Itir, how is this stuff done? What do we need to know? I think like that makes your, what I call the armor or the skill set, the knowledge so much richer because you are building on this, because I know it from a similar perspective, because I think I want to put in a story where a friend of mine was made a restaurant manager for a famous chain, and he was made to be like a managing director, but they put him in a kitchen because for the next 4 months, he had to do everything from ground up just to understand every part of the business, how it all works, because if anything goes wrong, you know how to fix it. So I think the way you've grown into the company sounds great. And yeah, I just love that the word fun is actually about the real richness of the company and its beliefs and messaging about bringing this to athletes. You going up, 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 all the way to the exit door, more or less. Obviously, Nike's got its own story at the moment where they've tried to do lots of various things and losing their market share on the ground. Did you see the writing on the wall? If you can talk about it, did you see the writing on the wall? Or was it just where you just finished with the ladder being rested on just one direction wall?
There were a few reasons that I left. Some of them were personal and some of them were related to the approach of the company. So it goes all hand in hand, let's say. The top reason that I left was the company gives you a jacket, which means like they give you responsibility, they give you budget, they give you also a title. And then that jacket got smaller and smaller for me as I grow. And that jacket was not enough for me. And I asked for a bigger jacket and I took the new ones, and it's all again grow smaller and smaller to me. And I wanted to do more, but the landscape of the business, and also that's where the company dynamics got into place, it didn't allow me to get a bit bigger jacket. And I recognized that if I push this path too much, I won't be happy. I was getting sad and sad every single year. I was working more, but I was having less fun, let's say. That fun is always my, I think, criteria when I approach the business. And also I was losing my passion a bit. So that's where I decided that if this jacket is small for me and if the company is not giving it to me, I don't need to stay here and then blame others. I should just take my own path and leave. And that was the best decision that I've given, actually. And I gave enough time to Nike also, saying that I'm planning to leave, but I don't want to leave. And because I want a better role, I want a bigger role, I want a bigger jacket. And then they were not able to provide that jacket within that time frame. And then I said, that's okay, no bad feelings. I still love the brand, I still love the team, but I'm leaving. So that was the decision.
Do you remember the first day when you left? What did it feel like?
It was one of the best sleeps ever. As I approached towards the end of my chapter with Nike, I started to build sleep disorders. I was always taking some melatonins, and it was really hard for me to fall to sleep and so on. And I was having a lot of headaches as well. And can one person suddenly don't have sleep disorders after one day? Yes. And it happened on the day that I decided, I gave my resignation and I left in about 4 weeks' time. And as I gave my resignation, I started to sleep better.
That is fascinating. That is absolutely, absolutely fascinating, because you can really pinpoint the stress towards the work. So you like just got rid of that, what's called a burden, like you just get rid of the responsibility and slept properly. So yeah, when you were feeling stressed and when you were taking melatonin and feeling the heaviness of the work, did you always know it? Or did you just go with it? Were you just too busy to actually say, oh, this is making me ill or this is making me sleepless, insomniac? Did you know it? Or was it only after you've given the notice that you realized that was all of the sort of causes?
I was quite aware of the things that make me sad and stressed out. I was completely aware of many of the things, but I wasn't aware that the sleep problem, for example, was because of my old job. Only then, once I left and I saw that I no longer have any sleep problems, And as a child, I never had any sleep problems. I recognized that, oh my God, this was so obvious. And then since then, I'm just taking melatonins only if I travel to my home for 7-8 hours just to avoid the jet lags. I take it because I just don't want to get jet lag. That's the reason. But I was aware that things were not going well. I have quite a lot of self-conscious, but I couldn't take any action till the 18-year mark at Nike. Yeah.
So when you were leaving Nike, did you know where you were going? Was it just a sort of blank piece of paper, empty road, like anywhere, or did you already pre-plan what was your next move?
I didn't plan. It was a very fast decision. I didn't get fired. So it was me telling the company that this is the time that I'm leaving, and just they made it easy for me. And I had no clue, but the first day I had a few options. I was like thinking about a few things, and I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I always thought that I was going to be in corporate. But when I started talking to people that I'm planning to leave, because I had a 4 weeks time between the time that I gave my resignation till I left, and I started talking to people and to people very close to me and saying that I'm planning to leave. This is still a bit, it's not announced yet and so on. And then those people that are very close to me started to bring me some job saying that we have this company, we need help, we need marketing help. Since you don't know what to do now, would you want to help us? And it's just, I left Nike at 31st of July and 1st of August, I was already having 2 projects in hand. Of course, these are not the projects probably I will take right now because they were like smaller scope projects, but I didn't care. I was fine doing anything. And that's how it started without any stop.
That's a great sign when you start on your own and the phone is ringing, or you've got something to do, because it's almost like the planets align, like it's meant to be. Because there's so much fear about changing lanes and so much so much fear about making a pivot. But it's only when you do it, when you actually follow your heart and you follow your soul, you're like, oh, I was meant to do this. And actually, I'm happy to leave this behind. Because is it too easy to wed yourself to a wrong solution? Maybe it is. So you said you didn't see yourself as an entrepreneurial person, but here you are, you're making it work. So do we overthink it? Do we think that we know something, or we are something that we shouldn't be? Like, do we overthink it?
Yeah, we sometimes overthink it. I don't want to say to people, just jump to the sea and then you're going to find your path. But I did deliberately for 2-3 years, I did lots of soul searching. I tried so many different types of experiences. Like I went to acting classes. I went to a sabbatical in New York where I started learning new dance styles and so on. I was just soul searching and soul searching, reading books about career change, what I'm going to do in life. And when you look at my library, which is now a library in our summer house, since I couldn't move the books to here, but it's just like that phase is so obvious. It's just like all the personal development books are over there. And when I work on books, I really work on them. If there's like an exercise at the end of the book, I do them. As I mentioned, if I do something, I do it really. So that's why that soul searching, I think, helps me identify the possible paths that I can take and maybe probably build some confidence. But also the same attitude when I left college and I started working as a textile engineer, and I took it so serious at that time. I was like, these 2 projects that has been handed over to me at day one, I'm going to do it the best I can. And then I'll see how it goes on the road. And that's my attitude. I think that helps. But what I would suggest to people, especially if someone asks me, should I start a new business or whatever, should I leave corporate? I ask them 2 questions. Are you okay to work alone? That's the first question, because people hate that. And are you disciplined enough? And when they say, oh, yeah, I'm quite disciplined and so on, and I really question that answer. Because I'm a very extremely self-disciplined person, and sometimes to the extremes, which it should be a little bit less extreme, in my opinion. And I still find myself sometimes going off the path and I need to get myself together and so on. And if I struggle about discipline as a person like this, I think that's also a very important checkpoint if you want to go to the entrepreneurial world. But I think you should answer this question better than I do. You are doing this for so many years.
I mean, I can answer your two questions. Am I happy to work alone? Yes, I am. Am I disciplined? I am now, but I was not disciplined for a very long time. I was good at getting the job done, but I was breaking other things whilst I was fixing something else, whilst I was making something else. So for me, it was always like, who shouts louder gets the job done first. And then whoever's not pushing, I'll do that thing in 2 weeks' time. So I was always in the moment, but I was determined. I was not disciplined, but I was determined. I was devoted and determined to actually get a job done. Whereas now, in my older age, it's more about discipline. It's absolutely, I know almost every minute of every day what's going to happen, how is it going to happen. And that beautiful feeling of actually knowing that predictability, that you know that you're going to get your exercise done in the first thing in the morning, that you're going to do this with the kids, you're going to have time for that. You got time for everything because we spend so much time talking about work-life balance, but we don't make it work. Like we just go, I wish it was working. What you doing for it? Not much, just hoping and moaning. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So when you said, if someone says I'm disciplined and you say, I question that answer, it's just, that must be the biggest bullshit in the world. Like, I'm disciplined. Let's be honest. I know lots of very, very successful people and they're more devoted and obsessed than they are disciplined, because if they were disciplined, we would not burn out. We would have happier relationships. We would have happier families. We would have happier relationships to our body. So the discipline, I think, comes with the headspace that when you got more time to think and observe and understand, which is an ongoing progress, that's where we get better. And I know that when you say I'm disciplined, I believe you, because the way you get everything done and how you come across on, let's say, on LinkedIn and how you do things, there's an aura and there's a sense of sort of peaceful sense in the middle of a chaos. I think those two questions are absolute gold for people if they want to go on their own.
Yeah. I had this friend who's working at Coca-Cola. She's very good and working there. And then she's growing up the ladder and so on. And she was like, okay, I just want to explore if there's another world after Coca-Cola. I'm just using the company name. It's okay because I have so many friends in Coca-Cola. But then I questioned these things like, are you disciplined? She was like, oh, probably I'm going to sleep till 10 a.m. in the morning if there was no pressure of going to the office. And then it was already telling the story for her. She's really good because there's a corporate pressure and she's now like at the GM level. But when I asked in a very friendly environment while we are having some drinks and it's a chilled environment and so on, and she's very close to me, and she was like, oh, probably, yes, you're right. I will be probably sleeping till 10 and going out at night. So yeah.
That's interesting. Again, I think this goes back to your soul searching, because again, I use this word a lot in some of these answers, maybe related to how I was in that age. It was quite a mature way of looking at the situation, like soul searching. Like, again, that's something maybe I would talk about, but I have done zero official soul searching in my life. I've not officially. I'm sure I've done lots of soul searching, but I never had a label for it. I was maybe busy doing it. Maybe some of the book writing is soul searching per se, but soul searching has never been mentioned on this podcast. Like, people have done lots of things to do, but none of them, well, I've got a plan. But what you do is that you are disciplined. So you're like, this is my plan. Maybe Stefan Sagmeister, his sabbaticals were soul searching. They were planned. Obviously, they still happen and he's on one of them right now. But there's a lot of people who say, I don't have a plan, or I never had a plan. And we are proud of not having a plan at first. Look, this is just happening. Then you realize, it could have been easy if I had a plan, wouldn't it? So your soul searching seemed to me like, with your reading and your learnings, that was a sort of formation of a plan of what's going to happen next.
I don't know. That's the main reason that I'm doing this soul searching thing or so on, because I am aware that my time here is limited. It started by the time that I lost my dad at the age of 20, and he was really close to me. And it was like a year battle seeing him die every day because of cancer. And back then, for 20 years, since he passed away for 25 years ago, I thought that I didn't have any traumas and I was okay with that. I was really sad. But the other day I was thinking I actually had quite a lot of trauma because of that, because I still miss him so much. And most of the things that I do right now is motivated by the fact that he's somewhere watching it. Can it be the case? It's been 25 years and he still has that much of influence in my life. And that loss, big loss, very big loss in my 20 years of age made me recognize that this can end any day. Or I can lose my mom any day. I can lose my sister in any day. Or I can even die myself any day. So it's just like that consciousness about the time, the age, and the health that is, it can go away just in a minute time. Make those conscious choices. Sometimes it's a little bit depressing, to be honest, to be that conscious about the fact that life is passing away and it can end anytime. But it always helps me ask this question, is this it that you want to do? Or are you aiming for something else in this life? So that's why I always want to, like at the age of 21, 22, it's the first time that I came to New York. And I knew at that time I wanted to live here one day. And that's why I moved here 2 years ago, because it's the time that I was able to do that physically and financially. All these things, I think that's probably why I'm so determined to make things happen about life. And that's probably one of the reasons that I'm doing soul searching in a regular basis. But it's not like I'm taking like 2-3 weeks of vacation every time and I'm going somewhere and I'm doing soul searching, but it's just like a constant process in life. I do soul searching every single day. I can tell.
I think I remember seeing a picture that you posted on LinkedIn about maybe your dad's last day when you guys went to the beach. And it was this sort of heartfelt story that was beautiful that you put it actually for everyone to see, because I think there's more openness about our experiences. I think we are more open to share things that not just start with, I'm proud to announce I've just joined XYZ as a marketing manager. Like, I think that thing should die a death, because the more we put of our soul out there and the more of our sort of intentions and the way how we operate and live, should I say, not operate, but live, it makes us more connected, because it's the stories that we can almost feel them through someone else's post. You mentioned time, and you mentioned that sort of feeling that time is limited. And I only wrote one word for this conversation prior, which is time. How much of an impact does the time have on your day-to-day being? Do you have time to enjoy things? That's maybe a wrong question, but like, how hard is it to stay in the present by being aware of the bigger picture? Like, do you allow yourself to get lost in the process, or how much distraction can the mortality have in your day-to-day work and life?
I'm not sure if I'm doing it really good around this time, because as we started it, we were not recording at that time. I'm working literally 7 days a week. But the construction of a day in that week is not like I start like 7 a.m. and I shut the computer around 9 p.m. I open the laptop at 7 a.m. and I close it at 9 p.m. The laptop is opened and closed a couple of times during the day, because I started by reading a book and writing something. That's the day always starts with like meditation, writing, and a book. But this is my flow. It doesn't need to be anyone else's flow. That's how I feel really happy and in the mood. And then I start working, and then I go to the gym during the day. So there's blocks of breaks that I go for a walk. And today, for example, I went for a walk at 6 a.m. in the morning because it was so beautiful. It was still dark and people still running along the shore and so on. It was so beautiful. But then during the day, I had some other breaks as well. I went to the market and so on. So it's just, yes, I work a lot, but I have this mindful breaks in between the day, because I know myself that after 2 hours of focused work, I have to give a break of around like half an hour, 1 hour. So I cannot work like 5 hours straight. I don't know if anyone can does that, but I cannot do that. I cannot do also Zoom meetings more than 2 hours. That's my limit. Some people does that, but I don't know if that answered your question.
It answered part of my question. Absolutely. I think you allow yourself to be present because I think if you were, let's say, 20 years younger, you could do twice as much or 3 times as much. And because you would just accept it as a part of the process. Whereas now being aware of the fact that, you know what, I can do 2 hours and just go away and actually do things when you feel like them. That's a great way to have it because we could actually maybe lean back on a precedent of actually knowing what it was like to work 9 to 5 every day or 9 to 9 every day. Whereas I think because we appreciate the breaks, we appreciate the time that we can actually metabolize things and do stuff. But when you talk about time, it reminded me of a book by Oliver Berkman called 4,000 Weeks. And you tell people like it's 4,000 weeks and people go, is that all? I'm thinking, that's quite a few, right? I never thought if you live to 80, you've got 4,000 weeks. And when you think of it from that perspective, when you really want to do everything really well with every single week, that seems like a lot of effort because if you want to waste it, that seems so much easier. I'm not going to do anything. Whereas when you go to a meeting of ambitious people, we almost feel like sometimes we don't celebrate enough of our achievements because you're like, I could have still done a bit more. Like I still have an extra hour there. I could have extra done this and I could have extra done that. So with your time, I know that you, for example, currently number your LinkedIn posts with weeks. So like week 38, week 39. And yeah. So does it ever get scary when you realize, shit, it's October?
Yeah, it sometimes feels like that. I don't know if it stresses me or not. Sometimes it stresses me that time is really flying fast. But yeah, I don't know what to say now about this. Sometimes it stresses me, sometimes it doesn't.
Can tell you that sometimes I just realize actually it's October. I'm thinking, oh, I thought it was April. Sometimes you just get so lost in time because you're busy. What do you mean it's October?
A few weeks ago, I was talking to my mom, and because we have our summer house, we loved going to the summer house. And I thought at one point, I didn't share this with her. And how many summers does she has? Yeah, I don't know. If we are lucky, 4 or 5. She's not old, but she has cancer and a serious form of cancer. So it's just if we have 4 or 5, then it means like I need to plan these summers very, very nicely. And I need to, that's why, for example, I know that she's going to come to New York in June and I already planned it just like German people, they plan it a year ahead. But it's just, I started doing longer term plans because of that, because counting it based on the summers that is left is a disruptive approach, even for us. Like how many summers probably you have? We are at the same age. It's just like 30 maybe. And already one is gone. So yeah, it feels a bit depressive, but it also makes you just take some risk, some story to your new book then.
Absolutely. I get lectures for mostly young students and I speak to mature creatives and those are sort of the polar side. And it's like, how do you inspire people? Which is the wrong way to say it. Like, how do you motivate people to actually want to go out and actually risk something and actually do something that might scare them? Because we all dream about change. We all dream about things. Like we want stuff that sometimes is a little bit too far to be achieved or to be reached. And the difference between it being done is sometimes so little. It's just a mindset. So yeah, thinking about from like, how do you give that urgency to people? Because it sure sometimes time feels so wasteful. I think that's the question of like, how do you do it? So let's go back from mortality and our limited time back to marvelous marketing, if it's all right. Yeah. So you have seen lots of changes throughout your career so far, and the changes are happening thick and fast again. So I know that your fantastic podcast marketing meeting has been quite heavily focused on AI because that's very much the presence of our lives. So what have you seen change? What have excited you? What have scared you recently? No, let's say if you were to summarize marketing to someone who's never had of marketing, how would you summarize it? Like where it's been and where is it going?
I know it since 15 years, 16 years, let's say. And I was not a marketer before that. But I feel that the big agency creatives, ad creation, TV ads, and big budget ads are what actually defines marketing. So if you ask any person around you what marketing does, they'll probably say ads, right? Like ads is the big thing. And that's the thing that consumes the most budget in a marketing team. I think that's shifting a lot. I'm not going to say that ads are over. I don't think so. But the form of the ads that we are seeing, meaning that the platforms, the format, and the things that we learned about ads will probably change. But the thing about the notion about ads, meaning that something is promoted and it's delivered to you by some kind of a promotion, is probably going to continue. Meaning that it can be something like you open generative AI, you ask a question, and the answers that you got from there are not generated by completely objective evaluation of the web, like the big web, but it's, filtered through the lens that some brands are putting some ads. So I'm expecting, for example, ads to start showing up in generative AI in that world. Or, for example, the other day, a creative director friend of mine was saying, why are brands doing ads like that? And he's in the ad business, right? And I was just like, because I shared like an ad of a big company, big FMCG company. And I said, okay, what do you think about this? I want to get his thoughts. And he was like, I don't know what I want to think about it. But the question that he told me, why do you think people are doing these ads like this? Like some people are acting, there's like a story behind it and people are watching it and it's like a 60 seconds and it's so made up and it doesn't interest me at all anymore. And hearing that, I'm just like, yeah, why are people doing 60-second ads to be promoted in a TV or in like wherever place? In social media, it doesn't matter. Maybe that might change in the future. But again, going back to the same question, that doesn't mean that the ad business will die. It's probably going to change format. And the thing about brands is it's hard to answer this question, actually, because I don't want to give declarative, like big statements of brands like this will win or so on. Some brands will die, probably in this age of AI, and some brands will not die. That's all I can say. But back to your question about AI is I'm not scared because if things change or so on, we'll see how it happens. But I'm not in a position to be too enthusiastic or too excited about AI, or I'm not in the position of being too pessimistic about AI because just an hour ago, I was exchanging thoughts with AI on a messaging that I'm working for a client. And the answers that I see there helped me so much because I work alone. But some of the answers are really just doesn't make sense. But some of the answers really helped me shift some thoughts. But the thing is that not any marketer can take those answers and put it into action because now I need to decide, okay, here are the suggestions of the messaging. I have a new copy. I instructed my new copywriter to come up with a new copy. That's there. But then how are we using this copy? Is it going to be on the website? Is it going to be on social? Is it going to be on a white paper or so on? Then that my expertise comes in. So I see it as like a nice support desk or thought partner, but I'm not expecting too much from that as a thought partner. Yeah, I'm more in an objective state of mind when it comes to AI. And I think I'm no longer interviewing so much people about AI because I was so curious about what's going to happen. Because people are either too optimistic or too pessimistic about AI. There's no one sitting in the middle. It's just, okay, we'll see what's going to happen. It's just like some people are picking like sides on this, which I don't like. That's why I just didn't want to give like a general big statement about what's going on and what's going to happen in marketing because anything can happen. We're going to see.
So you've decided to be in the middle. I like it. I'm happy to join you in the middle because I think the arrival of generative AI was met with such panic because it felt like it arrived out of nowhere. Of course, it was bubbling under the surface for a long time. We were tagging our faces on Facebook going, hey, this is me in this photo. Like we were helping machine learning for so long, doing also so many things. And then we just gave it a remarketing, reworded it to, oh, it's AI. Oh shit. Like this is artificial intelligence. Because I can't remember who was the writer who once said that to a primitive mind, intelligence seemed like a conspiracy. And when you put about intelligence, artificial intelligence, it can feel like a conspiracy. And of course, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, data scraping on a mass scale that's happening right now because it's a commercial advantage. Like someone making this stuff. It's not like we have all joint sources between all the countries to produce one model that will have someone that will help us all. It's a centralized thing with certain people doing certain things. But as you quite beautifully described, you said, I was having an exchange with AI about ideas because I work alone. And I did something similar when I was writing one of these books, Mindful Creative, almost like, how does the world see this problem? What is the average of seeing this problem? Because I kind of realized it's nice to write things from the first point of view, like from my view. But when I opened Claude, I was like, oh, okay, Claude, like, what can we do here? Like, how do you see it? Can I have an outside opinion? Because a friend of mine called AI, it's like an intern. It'll give you stuff back. It's not very good. You need to clean it up, but it's getting better and more interesting. And I've had so many conversations on this podcast with some celebrated people in the industry and those who work on their expression, they work on their creativity, don't feel frightened. In fact, they use it as a tool for help. It's something that moves the needle forward, moves the process forward. And I think this is the exciting part because we can't deny it. Like we never really were threatened. Oh shit, we got Max now. Like the people with whatever are going to be threatened because it's the progress. And I think what scares people is how fast it's happening because yeah, we're doubling up every so often. And it just feels like, oh, what do we do?
Yeah, and also if you are really active in marketing, for example, last week we were having this creative review with 2 or 3 people that are really creative people, right? Like we had comments and we saw it at different places. And then another creative person came in and showed something else. And we were like, oh, yes, this is going to change it. And the creative change after the fourth eye. And thinking about that, if 3 people that are completely big experts in this area are going through a loop and some other person, the fourth person comes in and still delivers, still is able to deliver a much better perspective, then it means I don't think that AI would be able to do that. Probably AI can be the fifth person, but it really requires, if you are doing marketing work and creative work, it really requires like some kind of expertise, long years of experience, thinking differently, and it shipped. I don't think there's like the aha moment too much when you are working with AI. I said too much because sometimes it happens. It's just, I didn't think about that. That's a good perspective. I don't see it as an intern only. Sometimes it acts like a real good, insightful resource, but sometimes it's just even worse than a junior intern. It's just like the expectation. What do you expect from it or not? Yeah.
I think the juxtaposition of expectation is that we were expecting it not to do very well or just give it very little and expect very lots to come back. Because when you feed it the right questions, you get sometimes very, very good answers. If you were to think about something like this, even 10 years ago, hey, you'll feed just some prompts into a machine or into a software and it'll come back and give you actually quite good writing. You're like, nah, that's never going to happen. Like we need that solved. But like with the intern, if you teach them how to ask good questions, they will start putting things together through pattern recognition and realizing, actually, we can do it that way. We can do this. No, this is because sometimes that fresh mind is very, very helpful, just as you described. Because if you get product focused people that are snow blind to all of it, then they're just thinking within a sort of echo chamber. So yeah, I think it's a really good example. But is there a particular tools that you use on a day-to-day basis or you would recommend that's quite helpful to your workload?
When it comes to generative AI, I use ChatGPT and I previously, I recently done my first own GPT, and I called it my thought partner. And it's just like I fed anything about my business and so on, and it helped because I was working on some messaging. And I also asked it to say, okay, shall I call my agency an agency, a boutique, a company, a firm, and then all these thinking. But I use some other tools, but for example, I use Crunchbase when I'm looking for a podcast guest or for a new client. And I know that Crunchbase has an AI algorithm in the back. But in terms of generative AI, it's only ChatGPT. I tried Perplexity. I sometimes do Google, but still it's ChatGPT is the one that I use the most.
That's an interesting answer. I had someone calling me and they said, I've got a problem with my order. I'm like, okay, I run a couple of online shops. Like, which one is it? She's like, oh, I've got some shampoos. I'm like, definitely not me. Oh, but you this and you that, but this is your number. I'm like, okay. Like, how did you get my number? She said, oh, I asked Google and Google gave me this number. And it was Gemini totally made up, like, oh, Brand New is the parent company of Masters of Brands, and this is their number. I was like, the top and the bottom is right, but the middle bit is not. So it was like, again, we just rely on this to be perfect, and it's nowhere perfect at all. I think in some ways it's like, in a way, dangerous because have we made people believe that AI is there for the answers and they will take it and just use it? Because you say use Crunchbase to look for clients and cast hosts. Some people ask, who's the best branding designer? And you get like a preset answers that they are not necessarily based on people's particular skills. They're just because those people might have more data on the system. So would you become more popular with the answer just because you got more SEO or more pages on your website? So I think that seems quite scary. And I'm a big fan of Rory Sutherland, who was talking about how the future of basically online search is going to be AI assistants. Like, give me a best toaster. And they'll be like, again, is a piece of shit toaster that's got the most SEO ranking and must be more information on the AI platform going to be suggested over something which is actually a lot better? Because currently we're still doing it with humans. There's a website in the UK called Which ? And they go and they test the Hoovers and they test the toasters and they do the product research diligently and unbiased. Whereas if you have something that doesn't know what his name is, and then just you feed lots of data that's been scraped from the website, makes you a bit worried about the future. What are we going to get out of all of this?
It's also like I have a client, my first client, actually, one of the first projects that I had, they are doing chatbots. So they are in this AI business for so many years. And then when I talk to him, he says, we are in this business and we are doing it really good. But still, human beings want to talk to humans because chatbots are not there yet. They cannot solve the problems. Still, you do like big sentiment analysis and so on, but it's still just not ready to replace humans. But what he says is that where AI is useful in those type of things, people will still have call centers. But when someone calls a call center, the person already sees through the filter of AI the possibilities, the possible questions that might come up. And if someone like chatbot actually in the back is giving a direction to the call center person. So it's not like we are talking to the chatbot to solve a problem. It's actually we are talking still to a human, but that human is taking some guidance from the chatbot itself. So that's, I think, still there's too many things that needs to evolve till we see a big human resource change probably in the world of marketing, in my opinion.
So we started this conversation with the word fun
Oh, yeah. And time.
and time. Do you see yourself having fun in your time with your work?
Yes. Probably that's why I'm working on weekends, because I like it. But I know and I'm conscious that I need to inject some more fun into it because I'm doing it too much. And I know that if I do this too much, which means work too much, sooner or later, I'm not going to have fun. So that's why I'm conscious about the fact that I need to inject some more personal time in between the working hours.
I really enjoy learning about you a lot more. Obviously, we've known each other for a while, but I was really excited about joining the dots of how you got to where you are today and learning more about you as a person, because it's giving me an idea of what goes behind the mind of someone who's so determined and dedicated to their work and wants to strive and succeed. And yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your mum, like how that influences the approach to life. And sometimes we need these sort of earth-shattering events in our lives to actually realize that, you know what, let's take it seriously, let's do it right. Because when you look back, I think it's a good way to see everything that you've created. So thank you for sharing all of this with me today.
Thank you for inviting me to your show and giving me the opportunity to speak about my personal and also my business life, which is also a personal life.
You're welcome. Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Mindful Creative Podcast. I'd love to know your thoughts, questions, or even suggestions, so please get in touch via the show notes or social channels. This episode was produced and presented by me, Radim Malinic. Editing and audio production was masterfully done by Neil McKay from 7 Million Bikes Podcast, and the theme music was written and produced by Jack James. Thank you, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Hey, just a quick note to say thank you for joining me on this episode. If this is your first time or you're a regular listener, please take a minute and rate the show on your chosen platform. A short review helps every show to be more visible to new listeners and provide them with value. So thank you for helping out. Thank you.